I think when you're very, 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 very young, Nayon, I think the why question comes to you very naturally because curiosity comes to you naturally. And part of it really has to do with the fact that your brain space has not yet been contaminated or held hostage by the ways of society. You're still very young, you're untamed, you're uncivilized, which is really good. You haven't been touched by the philosophies and the inventions and the absurdities of humankind. And so naturally, and because again, you're young and curiosity is a very organic part of what it means to be a very, very young, newly born organism, almost everything is a component of amazement and awe. Why don't the stars fall? How was I born? But in as much as those questions are interesting when kids ask, I don't think that kids know really what they're asking, And one of the relentless things about children is that they're never satisfied. The stars are there because God holds them in place. Why? I don't know. What is God? I don't know. And though it may be a frustrating experience for adults, especially because all of us assume that we're kind of know-it-all, we're like Costco, we have answers to everything. The truth is, after a while, I don't think we take our kids very seriously when they ask these questions. And I don't think really when the kids ask these questions, it's for the kids, it's really for us. The kids in a very unconscious, unaware way are trying to share with you what a moron you are. As a father, as a mother, as an adult. But we don't usually think of it that way. When you become an adult like you, I don't know if you're an adult, but let's just say you are, you can't really take your why questions very seriously because you're in the cradle of a lot of different desires, a lot of different passions. There are lots of things you want to do, lots of things you want to accomplish. You live in the future mostly. You keep looking at the clock, hoping this class to be over. So even though you may be very sincere and intense about the why questions, they don't really have much longevity. You don't really care. And that's one of the things that makes, I think, teaching as well as learning very difficult. We don't really care for the questions that we ask. If you go to Juan's question, are people dumb and stupid? Well, the answer is yes. For the most part, if you look at human history, we've done a lot of crazy things. But we can't take that question seriously because ultimately it comes back to you. Are you dumb and stupid? The answer is yes. But what are you going to do about it? Nothing. I'm waiting for this class to be over so I can have lunch. I mean, that's really where this question ultimately will go. If your question would be, well, how does one make someone care? Or how can someone begin to care? That becomes very, very, very different. And I can tell you that it's a very difficult question. I'm not quite sure what the answer is. If you have paid attention to Russell's question for the past many weeks in this class, his main question is, I have a certain lifestyle, there are people in this life, and I want them to care about something. They just don't have the capacity to care. To care to look, to care to be mindful, to care to be aware, to care to ask, to care to examine, to care to go on a quest to know, to understand, and ultimately to apply. And that goes all the way back to Gilgamesh, it goes back to Moses, to Jesus, to Muhammad, to Buddha, to Lao Tzu, to Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. They're all failures from one perspective, because they all try to help us care about some big issues about life. And you can be inspired, but that inspiration doesn't really have much of a shelf life. 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and that's it. I know it's way too early for you. So Joaquin, what was your question? Sorry. Allahu Akbar.
You don't remember either.
Well, I don't remember because I'm old.
You remember all our names?
I do, because I have nightmares about you guys. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take very much to create trauma inside people. And this class has been a very traumatic experience for me.
How are you able to like, sometimes, like, you raise your voice, right, and then
Right.
that,
I do. Yeah,
it's on purpose.
I do it on purpose. There are a couple of reasons. First, whenever you put energy into anything, you're burning fuel. Okay, that's number one. And as you become more intense, it's like pushing on the gas pedal. You become more exhausted. You're burning more gas, more fuel. And then it has consequences. Instead of your tank being able to take you for like 300 miles because you've kind of just been pushing on the gas pedal, now you can only go 50 miles. Okay. So to some extent, I try to be very aware of how much energy I have and how much of it I can use. And also, what am I using it for? I mean, you've asked very, very good questions about zombie apocalypse. I mean, it can be a fascinating conversation. And I have to kind of make a decision. Do I want to spend my energy talking about something I don't really care about, but it can be entertaining for students? And my answer is ultimately no. I don't want to waste my energy like that. And as part of, I think, being a bit more aware of your time, of your age, of what is meaningful for you. And it becomes, to some extent, very black and white. There are just certain things that you just find to be absurd. They may be interesting, but they're not that interesting for you, so you just pass them over. So the other question, perhaps, that I'm paraphrasing, putting words in your mouth, is when you had first asked, is there any question you have for us students? I think the underlying tone to that question, and you asked it without really saying it, is, I like you, and this is like your comment to me. I like you, and I think we all like you, and I hope because we like you, you like us the same. And since for the past many weeks we have been asking you questions, open questions, questions that are meaningful for us, I'm hoping that you could kind of duplicate, pay it forward as a sign that you also care for us. You can ask us questions like, how old are you? What is your name? How are your parents? What are you doing in life, right? I understand. That may not have been so, but that's the way I saw it. And when I said, no, I don't have any questions for you, there may have been some of you in this class who perhaps took my response personally, and you were kind of disheartened, offended, that, I thought I liked this guy, I thought he liked us enough to ask us some questions as a sign that he too cares, but he has no questions for us. Does that mean that he doesn't care? Well, let's unpack that for a moment. I had this young man in my class. He was African American. He comes by once in a while. He's about 40 some now. He started coming to my classes, I think, when he was like 30, maybe 35. He was a high school teacher, married with 2 or 3 or 4 kids. And he was part of the Occupy movement. He got locked up for a couple of days, and consequently he lost his job. And he thought he knew what it means to be African American, and I'm not denying that he didn't. He knew what it meant to be a man. He knew he thought that he assumed to know what it means to think and feel about things the right way. And so when him and I became somewhat comfortable with one another, I just asked him very plainly, I can't be interested, first of all, in the things you think about. I can't be interested in your meanings to life. I can't be interested in your purpose. I don't care about them. Because what little I have seen from you, your comments, your questions, it tells me you don't really think about things the right way. So let me do this for you. and it's going to require some sacrifice on your part. Told him. He says, okay, what do you want me to do? I don't want you to think when you come to this class. I don't want you to tap into your past and give me responses that are conditioned from your own experiences. Don't tell me what it means to be African American. Not that I would know, but don't tell me. Don't share with me any positions you may have about anything in life. Care for the things I care for. He says, wait, you're telling me that I shouldn't care about anything that I've cared about for the past 20 years or 30 years, and only to care about the things that you, Amir Sabzavari, care about? I said, yes, that's what I'm saying. Why should I do that? So I told him the following story. I said there was once a carpenter who was about 60 or 70 years old, and he was tired of building houses. He'd become exhausted, his body was worn out. And so he calls his boss and says, I am done. Whatever you owe me, just give it to me so I can retire to the mountains and ask the why questions. Why this and why that? And his boss, having known him for about 40 years, says, fine. And the carpenter's phone begins to ring after about 10 minutes, and it's his boss. He says, listen, I'll give you your money, but if you can just bring yourself to build one last house, it'll take you no more than 6-7 months, and I'll give you double the pay, and then you can retire. And with this money, you can have more than just bagel. You can have bagel and cream cheese and coffee. And the carpenter says, let me think about this for a minute. Calls the boss back after 2-3 hours and says, okay, I accept. And he's given direction where to go, what to do, what sort of a house he wants to be built. And the carpenter goes to Lowe's and Home Depot and Ace and buys all the materials. For the first 2-3 weeks, he works really hard, just the way he's been for the past 40 years. But the wear and tear on his body begins to show. And he says, you know what, my boss isn't here. I'm the only one working and building this house. I'm just going to build it really, really fast. It's like you're late for your soccer practice, you haven't eaten, and you just gulp down the sandwich, and it's just stuck here, it won't go down, and you push it down with Coke, but because you haven't chewed it, you can't really go to the practice and play soccer because you're about to throw up every 2 seconds. And so he builds this house really, really fast, very, very clumsily. After about 7 or 8 months, he calls his boss and says, the house is done. Come, inspect. And hopefully you'll be satisfied. You'll give me my money, and then I can retire. The boss comes, and he looks around. He's okay. They're both standing by the front door. And the carpenter is a little confused because the man is not going in. He's got the key to the house, but he won't put it in. Eventually, he takes out the key from his pocket and gives it to the carpenter and says, this house is my gift to you. And the carpenter, man, he is excited. How can you afford these days and this time to be able to save $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for a down payment to a house? The carpenter has his house for free. The boss leaves, and as the carpenter is walking through the house, being very excited, it dawns on him that the first rain, the house is going to leak. Instead of putting 3 nails in every stud, he only put 1 nail. This house has no stability. And then he became really, really sad. And this young man looked at me in the class and said, I don't really understand the story. What are you talking about? I said, you're a 40-year-old man. You've come to my class. Why? What is it about the house you have built for the past 40 years that has ultimately led you here? Your life is unfinished. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're sad. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're asocial. Maybe you're an addict. to porn, to drugs, to this, to that. Maybe you go to therapy. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you. But what that shows to me is that you have built a house, but it's leaking everywhere. Stop trying to fix this house with your ideas. They're not going to work. They haven't worked for the past 40 years. They're not going to work now. Give your life to me. Let me think for you. You only ask questions and then pay attention to the way I respond to them. If you like my approach, adopt it. But that's going to take a while, because what usually happens is you have to, and that's the thing, you see, because if you don't like the way I do business, I can't care for you. I mean, it's nice to have you in the class. It's nice to hear your questions. It's nice to respond to your questions, all of you. I'm not talking about you specifically, everybody, you know. But I know this culture well. I also know what it means to be 18. I also know the anatomy of inspiration, how it works, what it does, how quickly it goes out. I also know what it means to live in a culture that's cheap, that's superficial, that doesn't give you much of a foundation. You know, if you have a GPS that's all messed up, the idea that you're going to get to a destination is ridiculous. You know, when you take a boy or a girl home for your parents to meet, it doesn't take very much, especially for your mom. Maybe 5-10 minutes. Just the body language. She'll know. So, son, I don't think this is going to work out. Don't do it. But because, you know, you've made the mistake of falling in love before checking under the hood, you say, Mom, what the hell do you know about love? I see the way you are with Dad. There is not an ounce of aliveness in your relationship, so you wouldn't know. Don't tell me who I should be with. Your mom says, okay, you're going to come back, but don't tell me I didn't say so. And that's exactly what happens. You know, life is very much like a chess game. You make a bad move, man. Just go out with the wrong people, do a couple of drugs for all the wrong reasons. You'll become an addict. And then you have to spend the next 40 years of your life recovering. There is nothing that you and I do that doesn't have consequences. He knows really well what those consequences are, and I know well. You know, him and I both assume that we are great parents, that we have the capacity to be great parents. And that assumption allowed us to have intimacy with our companion, and now you have children, and now you're stuck. Because we don't really know the map. We don't really know what to do to make sure that their future is secure, healthily, happily, as best as we possibly can make them secure. You know, in many ways, you know, all of us in this class, you guys are not very different from me, in the sense that you also are an immigrant. Because the moment you become 15 or 16, you try to figure out what to do with your life. It's like me, my parents pushing me on a plane and saying, go to America, figure things out. Aren't you going to come with me? No, I got to stay back home. You know, and then you come here at the age of 11 and you say, what the hell am I doing here? Who are these people? What is this language? Why are people's hair yellow? You know? And so when you get to be 15 or 16, you are really an immigrant. You're forced into a land, psychologically speaking, that you have to figure out what exactly it is that you want to do. So you go to this class, you go to that class, you try this friend, you try that friend, you try this date, you try that date. And you have so many bad experiences that ultimately say, you know, I really can't trust my own judgment about anything. And then you get sad, you get depressed, you get lonely, and then you go on drugs. Yeah.
But in my mind, I asked the question like, well, how do you know what happens back? And I remember what you said, and you thinks you should do something.
Look, let's just say you come to my office every Tuesday and Thursday, just before this class, like around 8. and you always bring a pound of coffee like Neon. Hello, Neon. And I said, "Hi, Joaquin, how are you doing? What's going on?" He says, "Oh, Amir, I brought you a gift. Here's a pound of coffee." I said, "Would you like some coffee? I just made some." You say, "No, I actually don't like coffee at all." So you just sit. So I say, "What's going on?" You say, I was reading this book. I was reading that book. I was thinking this. I was thinking that. I was feeling this. I was feeling that. I talked to my friends about this class, about some of the ideas. And as our friendship grows, I realize that you're becoming more and more interested in reflecting, not so much philosophy, okay, because we'll talk about what philosophy is in a few minutes, but in just thinking about things in a way that has substance, depth. Then, after like 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks or months, you ask me, "Amir, so what do you think I should do with my life?" Well, I've had like 2, 3 months of experience with you. Every time you come to my office, you ask difficult questions. And I like those questions. So I say to you, "Joaquin, listen, how old are you?" You say 18. I say, "Look, I don't know how much longer I'll be alive, but while you have me, exploit me." You say, "Exploit you?" "No, I don't want to take advantage of you." I say, "Joaquin, don't be stupid. You don't understand what exploitation really means. See, you can be exploited by someone who doesn't care for you, or you can be exploited by someone who cares for you." Okay? So when I say exploit me, I mean the following. Take all the classes I offer, all of them. You're in high school right now, which means that if you do things the right way, when you're done with high school, you will have had about 30 college units. Then I'm going to refer you to my brother so you can fulfill some other categories. He teaches computer science, psychology, and sociology. Then I'm going to refer you to my wife, who teaches religious studies. Then I'm going to refer you to some of my other friends who teach other branches of knowledge and education. And by the time you're 20, you'll go to UC Berkeley, okay, having completed 60 units. It'll take you 2 years to be done with your bachelor's. And then you say, "Bachelor's in what?" You do your bachelor's in philosophy. Not business, not history. If you're asking reflective questions, okay, that is your passion. Nourish it. Protect it. How do you do it? By doing what I'm asking you to do. Then I'll tell you on the side, Berkeley will try to destroy your passion, and it will. You will have crummy instructors. You'll be forced to read ridiculous books. Do it. Get the best grades possible, not because you like the books, not because you like Cal, not because you like instructors, but because you will do what I tell you. Then you will get your bachelor's. Then you will come back to me and say, and remember, I have had students who have gone to Oxford, who have gone to Yale, and they call me in tears. "I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. This school sucks. The books suck. The essays I have to write are awful. What am I doing here?" I say, "Listen, you're not there to learn. You're there because Yale is like a big hammer. Once anyone sees Yale on your resume, the doors will open. And once a door opens, you're in the classroom. You begin to teach. And slowly, everything you have read, you'll bring them together and you will inject your own passion into it. It'll be yours. You won't paraphrase, you won't mimic Plato. Okay? You won't be a copy-paste sort of an instructor. You won't plagiarize, do you see? Then I say, "Okay, Joaquin, listen. I know a little thing about Peralta, which is if you want to teach in the philosophy, humanities department, a master's degree in philosophy is not going to do it. You need to get your master's in humanities." You say, "Why in humanities?" "I am the chair of philosophy and humanities at Laney. Once you have your master's, I'll get you a job." Now, I will encourage you to do a PhD. And you say, why? I'm already teaching. I say, no, you're making a mistake. You don't want to teach at Laney. You want to go teach somewhere else. But why? I say you're 20, maybe 25. Laney is a great school, don't get me wrong. It's got great people, great students. But like anything else in life, as you get older, you become tired of obstacles. You become tired of people coming to class late. You get tired of people talking about things that are ridiculous and absurd. You want to talk about Plato, perhaps. Maybe you want to talk about Malcolm X. But you want to talk to people whose interiors are clean. Oakland creates a good amount of difficulties for people on the inside. There are parental issues, drug issues, violence issues, lonely issues, depressing issues. Okay? If you can, be away from those things as much as possible. Now, if you have a degree from Yale, come to Laney. Teach for 10, 15 years. When you get exhausted, go to Cal. Teach there. Or maybe continue teaching at Laney, but have a classes at Cal. So you could get a different perspective. You can find students who are a bit more ready for what you have to offer them. Now, what are you doing? From the age 17 until 30, you have given me your life. And I'm putting your life in a map. And this map has an endpoint. The endpoint is you having a PhD. That endpoint gives you a power. That power will get you a job. Now, let me tell you what teaching is, and I'm going to connect that to Alex's question. Art. Human beings have no choice but to be animals who express things. Sathya has tattoos. What is he trying to express? Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe it's an expression of confusion. Maybe it's an expression of rebelliousness. Maybe it's an expression of, I hung out with some friends, I got drunk, I got high. Next thing I know, I have a tattoo. I have regret. And I wear a short sleeve shirt. Hopefully my instructor will say, oh, Sathya, what's that tattoo? Then he'll embarrass me. And then I'll be reminded of what a stupid thing I did 10 years ago. Or maybe it's a memory of my grandmother. That's art. It could also be that you're depressed, let's just say. And you listen to an audio lecture. You read a book. And all of a sudden your imagination begins to become active. You begin to think. You begin to be motivated, to be inspired. You're having art taking place in your imagination. Art is, as Leo Tolstoy would say, it's something that relates to education. Art is not Snoop Dogg. Art is not Rihanna. Unless they can teach you how not to be like them. It could be MC Hammer. It could be, I'm sorry?
Seriously. Well, I'm sure you guys.
Well, there are lots of, it's not so much Snoop Dogg or Rihanna or those people. Art has a transforming impact upon the listener or upon the audience. And the question is, what sort of an influence do you want to be? And what sort of an impact do you want to create on your audience? See, I can scream when I speak, but it may annoy some of you. I can be like this, and that also can annoy some of you because you will categorize me as being monotone. Okay. But I also know the quality of my voice because I'm a singer. I sing Persian traditional music. So I know the impact of a good voice, and I have a great voice. it soothes, it inspires, it angers, it makes people curious. So I know how those things work. And so in voice, you have words. In words, you have messages. And now the question is, what exactly is it that you're saying? I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to make myself elevated. I am here to share with you ideas. And these ideas are not my own. These ideas have been around for a long, 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 long time. Now, let me say something about ideas. Forgive me, just 1 minute. Yeah, please go. Thank you. You know, Henry David Thoreau was a curious young man. He had a brother, Michael, who died early on. And he had read the sacred text in Hinduism called the Bhagavad Gita. It's just a book. But he read it at the right time in his life. He was open to possibilities. And then when he reads the book, he becomes disgusted with society. See, the book was a piece of art. And he picked up this art form. And he was at just the right time in his life. All the stuff, all the songs in this book went inside him. And he said, screw society. And screw all the people in society. I'm going to go to Walden, even though it was only 10 minutes from civilization. He went there to be around water, to be around trees, to be around animals. And then that piece of art, Bhagavad Gita, transformed him into being a writer of sorts, uncivil disobedience, that there is nothing wrong with you rising up and fighting society at large, being like a Neo in the movie The Matrix, being the prisoner in the allegory of the cave, where you understand that the cave has nothing to offer you but illusions, hollow images and dreams and hopes. They have no substance. Imagine you go out with a drunk and you hope to marry him. He's a drunk. None of your dreams are going to come true. He's going to destroy everything that he touches, you included. But it's only a matter of time before you realize that no one can tell it to you. So one day, some years later, a man named Mahatma Gandhi, not yet Mahatma, which in Hinduism means a great soul, someone who has realized his passion, his soul. He's on a train reading Walden, Civil Disobedience. And somehow this particular art form makes him think. I mean, really, really think, man. He doesn't read this book because it gives him pleasure. He reads this book because it makes him think, and that's painful, and he enjoys pleasure in pain. See, most of us want to have pleasure without pain. Because deep down we realize that the sort of pains in our life are really not worth having. See, but when your mom has cancer and you take care of her, it gives you great joy to take care of your mother, even though you know she's dying. Pleasure and pain, great marriage. Do you see? So, single-handedly, Mahatma Gandhi is transformed by the works, by the artwork of Henry David Thoreau. One man overpowers 400,000 British soldiers and administrators in India. They leave. Do you know how powerful that is, man? I talk about Henry David Thoreau. He lived a couple centuries ago. I talk about him because he's a living fountain. He's present. He's everywhere. When I die, no one's going to talk about me. When you die, no one's going to talk about you. Then some years later, there was this man in America, Martin Luther King Jr. He reads the works of Mahatma Gandhi, says, oh my God, this is amazing.